All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are having a little bit of a late start, and we're going to have a break here in just a minute and then come back. We have a press conference this afternoon. We need, a lot of us want to attend. So, Judge Scoggins, could I call on you to open us up?
Let's bow, please. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here today. We would love for you to lead us and guide us in all these decisions we make. Thank you for this day. Thank you for the beautiful sunshine outside and everything we pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. All right. Representative Ford, you have House Bill 55 back. And if you would, just a brief explanation of what we're doing.
Thank you, Chairman, for having me back so soon. I was here last week. This bill is to add another judge to the Lapahawla Judicial Circuit, House Bill 55, and the bill had to be recommitted because we needed to change the effective date from July 1st to January 1st,
And
2026.
you have a substitute with that
Yes.
in it? Okay. Is that in our folder? All right. Any questions by the committee? I have a motion. Do we have a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right. House Bill
Thank you.
55 is out. And you're going to need to do a rules form because we've got rules starting to meet tomorrow. So, all right. Who is this? Oh, it's my clerk back home. Still calling. All right. House Bill 180. Judge Scoggins, can you do that right quick?
There's not a number on this, I don't know if it's
Oh, well, that's let's see. 18, 17, 16, 15, I think. Try it and see.
Is that right?
There we go. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of pitching for Tyler Paul Smith today. He's got some important business to take care of. He's got a baby that's supposed to be due tomorrow, so he couldn't be here today. So this is a bill that's dealing with probate court qualifications. We're planning on adding to the code or changing the code a little bit, and this only applies to Article 6 courts, which are counties that are in excess of 90,000 people. Yes, Article 6. And what we're requiring, and there was kind of a difference in the qualifying and what the code says and what the probate court rules say. There's an affidavit that's going to be required to be signed by every candidate for a probate judge in those particular Article 6 courts. That the affidavit's got to state they have been practicing law for over 7 years, and at the time they qualified, not at the time of the election. That was the issue in the code and the qualifications. This will be required to have that affidavit there with you and signed on the day that you qualify for probate judge. And that's pretty much all the bill does.
All right. Any questions by the committee? Yes, sir. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to remember, is that the general rule that the qualifications have to be satisfied at the time of qualifying for every
Yes.
other office?
Yes.
How did it, was it just the way the language was
I
drafted?
think the code actually says upon election, and the rules of the probate court says at the time of qualifying, so we're trying to put them together so they may do the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Don't see any other questions. Do I hear a motion? Got a motion? Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Bill passes.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Representative Kelly, you want to start on yours?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring before you House Bill 199, LC 473282. I think about the experiences I've had in this Judiciary Committee room, now my 13th session, and what we're doing here today is something I witnessed about 5 or 6 years ago. We had a working Judiciary Committee lunch, and we brought in Chick-fil-A sandwiches. And the staff, the great staff, brought us in our Chick-fil-A sandwiches, and they put it in front of us. And I said, well, where's the ketchup? And they said, we didn't bring you ketchup. I said, how do you eat Chick-fil-A without ketchup? So they ran, got us ketchup, brought it back, and they were just so happy to give us the ketchup. I said, y'all are going to be great up here at the Capitol because you created a problem, then you were just so happy to fix it. And that's what we're doing here a little bit today, Mr. Chairman. It's a serious issue. We're trying to make sure that our judges, their personally identifiable information is restricted from certain public websites, some certain public disclosures, because unfortunately we've seen in our country instances where our judges and their closest family members have been attacked, threatened, and lives been put at danger. And so last year, under Senate Bill Senate Bill 580, we put forth a process that was going to require a database be kept of personally identifiable information that would then be used to make sure that information wasn't out in the public. Well, through the conversations with different cybersecurity experts and otherwise, we realized that having one website where everyone's personally identifiable information was kept together may not be the best idea in case it got hacked. And so the Judicial Council and the Administrative Office of the Courts have been working with our judges as well as our partners at the county government and city government level. And we've came up with a new process, which would essentially be a form that judges can fill out that includes their phone numbers as well as their home address. And they can submit that form through the AOC, and they'll submit it to local governments to then make sure that information is not available on any public website. And so we can get into the policy of why we did it last year, but this is simply a cleanup bill to make the process a little more efficient and cost effective to taxpayers. We originally had looked at, in the appropriations process, this would have cost around $177,000 to implement. With the process in place here, it will only be about a $27,000 cost to implement, so savings to the taxpayers of $150,000. I will be offering some amendments at the proper time, Mr. Chairman. Those simply go to a conversation that the AOC had with our county officials, and that's the bill, Mr. Chairman. We certainly have one of our Supreme Court justices here that's worked on the issue, as well as the AOC available if there are any questions, and they could speak to the measure in more detail if you'd like them to do that, but that's what I have.
Okay, did I understand that looking at the stats in the federal system that threats, attacks have tripled in the federal system?
I don't know that
judges?
particularly, Mr. Chairman, but I certainly don't doubt you having that. We certainly have seen a rise in threats made to our judges, both at the federal level and at the state level.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for the author? Who's number 6? Representative Holcomb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Kelly, do we provide this for anyone else within the state, or would this be novel?
I believe during the conversation last year when we did Senate Bill 580, I think that came up. I think there's probably a case that you could be made to include some other elected officials in this, but the measure last year and this year is specifically limited to judges. I think there's the political discourse in our country is resulted in a lot of us, probably including some of us in this room. I know Senator Dixon, who carried the bill last year out of the Senate, he was personally swatted and had things, had a situation at his home that really scared him. I think there's a policy decision that we can make to maybe extend at some point to different officials, but the measure last year and this year is specifically focused on our judicial branch because of the unique and kind of sensitive nature of some of the things they do outside of policy decisions, which we make, of course, but people upset with child custody, divorce arrangements, being sentenced to to prison and otherwise. That's why we specifically focus on our judicial branch in this measure. But
Understood. Now, I'm supportive of what you're trying to do. The reason why I'm asking is if an individual were to go and look at property records and see that it's redacted, and this is the only category of persons that is protected, then they wouldn't know the name, but they would know that that's a judge, correct?
I think I've seen other officials who have their information not public, but I don't know if we necessarily have a set process and procedure for how one gets that. I have seen other officials have some of their information, like off the Q Public website, or others not have their name, but I don't think we have a standardized process for that.
And does that include property records like what we're implementing here? Do you know?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? What's the pleasure of the committee? Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to offer the proposed amendment that's before us. Mr. Chairman, they're all just kind of some, not change in practice, but change in verbiage. I would like to offer the written amendments as one that are before you, titled Proposed Amendment to House Bill 199. I'd like to offer those as one amendment if that's possible.
I'm going to say that we can do that. So
Thank you, Mr.
all
Chairman.
right. Everybody has a copy of it? And have you had a chance to look at it? Any objections to it? Oh. Representative Oliver.
Is not an objection, Mr. Chairman, but is there anywhere else in our past actions where we have moved away from judges and gone to other kind of categories of elected officials for these kind of protections? I just don't remember.
I
Because
don't.
we're adding tax assessors and Board of Ethics, and clearly those are not judges. Board of Education.
Right.
No, that is just the information found that those individuals control.
Control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so line 35, it references back to to a state or local government entity that would be in control of the personally identifiable information. So if you look back in subsection 3 right above, it says publicly available content means any written or electronic document or record that provides so-and-so controlled or in the possession of a state or local government entity. And so then that's just referring to the entity, the definition of the entity.
So these categories are not included for protections of redactions. They're just people who manage the list and are directed to make the corrections.
Right.
The restrictions.
Thank you. That
Yes, ma'am.
clears it up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
That was the way I understood it. We're not protecting them, we're just requiring them to remove publicly available portions of information about judges.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? All right, let's see. Let's take care of the amendments. Do I hear a motion on the amendments?
Move to advance.
All right. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the amendments are added. Any further discussion of the bill? Seeing none, do I hear a motion? Or I've got the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, so any opposed? All right, got the bill passed.
Thank you, Mr.
Ladies
Chairman.
and gentlemen, at this point, we're going to take a break and go to our press conference, and then we'll be back after that to take the last bill.
We just work together so well.
So, did you feel the legal IQ go up when it won? Yeah. the authority. Dude, I'm just gonna talk collateral estoppel while you're I don't even think I've seen those two words together. Collateral estoppel. Did you want me to reserve a spot next to these?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back to order. The author of the bill that we have left on the calendar has shown up. Thank you. I know you've been busy. And let's see, this mic right here. If you would tell us about House Bill 131.
Thank you, Chairman Gunner and members of the committee. This is House Bill 131 concerning self-storage, delinquency, auction, advertisements. Georgia has around 1,500 or more self-storage facilities literally in every corner of the state. They serve seniors, they serve students, they serve renters, they serve people who've been through a divorce or had a death in the family or otherwise have transition and a need to store furniture and other items. Most of those self-storage around the state, they're owned and operated in family-run small businesses. They've invested their money in these businesses to provide that service of storage to folks who need it. And this change would catch state law up with technology that's developed and the market and the industry that's developed over the years. The statute before you was drafted years ago, 10/4/2013, before the internet was invented, and it basically loads a contract into state law as a consumer protection item. And as part of that contract that's in the statute, the self-storage facility is required to give actual notice to the customer, to the person who's developed the delinquency, that they are delinquent and that the contents of the storage unit are moving forward to be auctioned. That's what happens if somebody abandons a self-storage unit and a delinquency has occurred and they don't respond to the contact. So you have actual notice to the customer here, which is different than some other legal transactions that legal ads are done for. This is a statute that has direct notice to the customer or the debtor. And then it also provides for advertisement in a manner that will elicit 3 bids. And what the industry has found over the years is that most of the people who bid money on these delinquent storage units are generated through online advertisements. That is the market. They will bid online, they learn about it online. In the olden days, you would put an ad in the paper and you would hire an auctioneer a few times a year and you would have an actual auction. That just doesn't happen anymore. The bids come online. The example is if somebody has a delinquency of a few $100s, typically the bids that get generated, it's going to be like, $10, $25. It's a pretty minimal amount. There is a shortfall. But the biggest cost that this current statute imposes on the self-storage facilities in Georgia is the wasted space in these delinquent units. The unit owners can't rent them out to paying customers, and paying customers don't have room to store their goods. And so that's the dysfunction that this bill remedies. I did send out a good timeline showing the direct notice and then the advertisement and then the auction. And there are multiple steps along the way to prevent errors from being made. But the most important thing is these online ads. That is what is generating the bidders in this particular market. So the changes in the bill, just summarizing the changes in the bill, as you could see before, you've got 10/4/2013. The changes in the bill are fairly limited. It is educational to look at that contract that is outlined in the statute that has the due process and the many procedures that protect the consumers. But what it does on page 5 of the bill, line 118, it says commercially reasonable advertisement. And it's an advertisement and sale. And on page 6, the current law requires not 1 but 2 weeks of newspaper ads. So this eliminates that 2-week newspaper ad requirement, and it allows the storage facilities to do the advertisement to the general public for purposes of the auction online or in the method that they believe is commercially reasonable to generate at least 3 bidders. The check and balance is if you don't generate 3 bidders, you got to do the sale at a later date. And so what the companies have found is that it's the online ads that are generating the bidders. And so that's what they're asking, that this old regulation be relieved to run an ad twice in the paper. The debtors are getting actual notice, and the advertisement online, which is being done in the industry, will give a broader notice. I'm a fan of legal ads. I'm one of the few out there, I think. You know, for various matters over the years, I've kept abreast of them in my local legal organ. Probate ads, foreclosure ads, Secretary of State, corporate, DBA, trade names. There are reasons for transactions in the legal ads. This is not one of them. This unique statute with this contract and the statute and with actual notice to the debtor or the customer is one that we can relieve this red tape and this sunk cost on these small businesses, but more importantly, the delay that is tying up these units from being available to paying customers. With that, I will take any questions from the committee. And
All right. Any questions of the author? Okay. All right. We have a few folks, I think, that want to come and talk about it. Is it Justice? Okay. Joe Doherty? I hope I'm saying that right, maybe.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Introduce yourself. Say your name correctly.
You said it correctly.
Did I get it right? Okay,
yeah,
good.
I grew up in Florida. I went to school in Georgia, and I've had my name mispronounced my whole life, so I do appreciate you saying it correctly. So for the record, Joe Doherty, Self-Storage Association out of Alexandria, Virginia. And Representative Reeves did an excellent job covering the bill. I don't mean to go over or repeat what he had said, so I'll try to streamline my testimony as much as possible.
Okay.
Let me begin first by dispelling a myth about the self-storage industry. Storage Wars is not reality TV. I know many of us have seen that, but contrary to what you see on the show, most self-storage auctions don't involve a Mickey Mantle rookie card or an original Andy Warhol. Those items were planted for production value. As the owners who are going to testify after me can explain, most self-storage auctions happen after the tenant has removed the items that they want to keep and burdens or saddles the storage operator with the remaining items. According to recent data from the industry's largest online auction provider, nearly 60% of storage auctions sold for under $100. So the question that I keep coming back to when we deal with this across various states is it reasonable under those circumstances to continue an advertising requirement that burdens self-storage operators while providing no benefit to consumers? But let me begin the meat of my testimony, though, with an area where we have common ground with the newspaper industry, and and Representative Reeves touched very well on this, the importance of notice to the tenant and affected parties. Representative Reeves did an excellent job covering the notice to the tenants, but Georgia Code also requires notice to an alternative contact who is designated by the tenant. So I'm married, I could designate my wife, I could designate another family member to also receive notice if I wish to do so, and that individual also receives notice. And if there's a lien on the property, say a rent-to-own furniture or certainly something with a title like a vehicle, there are two protections there. There's a UCC search that's performed by the owner prior to the sale, and then notice goes out to those lien holders, and there's also a disclosure opportunity in the rental agreement to list lien holders as well. So the lien holders are going to be protected through this process. In addition to those required notices, there are also phone calls, emails, and text to the tenant. House Bill 131 in no way affects any of those notice requirements. as an industry, we believe in the importance of those notice requirements, not just because they're legal mandates, but because they remind the tenant, perhaps the tenant has forgotten about the debt, and we want to avoid the sale of property that the tenant still wants. We have no interest in selling property that the tenant wants. We just simply want the owner to be able to be paid for the service either by this tenant or somebody who's going to rent the space after it's been vacated. So what this statute does, it doesn't affect what House Bill 131 does, it doesn't affect the notice requirements of the bill. It modernizes the advertising requirements in a way that's consistent with more than 30 states. And the important point that I want to make here is that the code addresses notice differently from advertising. When all of those requirements I was just talking about, those are referred to in the statute as notice. But when you get to the newspaper references in the statute, the terminology changes to advertising. And I had to go back and remind myself of my first year in law school. Many of you are lawyers as well. And what I reminded myself is that's called the presumption of meaningful variation. So that presumes that the legislature intended a different policy goal by using different words, of course. And I wish I could scroll down here. I'm having a hard time with this document I'm in, so I apologize for that. But there are two other examples, at least in statute, where newspaper advertising is required, and the statute refers to that newspaper advertising as notice. Those are 48-445, and I don't know what's going on with this document, but there's another reference in here. Things to do with, for example, government public notices, those are referred to as public notice. They're not referred to as advertising or changes in corporate names and things of that nature that are also advertised in the newspaper. Try to reboot this document in a minute because it's misbehaving here. Okay. So the two final points I want to make. First, just playing devil's advocate for a moment. What if the newspaper advertising is intended as some form of constructive notice? If that's the case, we believe the legislature should make the policy choice to eliminate the newspaper advertising requirement and can do so without causing any consumer harm. The reason for that, in using Fulton County as an example, Fulton County has, the legal organ in Fulton County is the South Fulton Neighbor. There are over 1 million residents in Fulton County, and the best numbers I could come up was it's in the low tens of thousands in a circulation for the Fulton County Neighbor. So that's maybe a couple of percentage points of the overall county population subscribes to that paper either online or in print. And then the notion that of that set of people that subscribe to the paper or read the paper, that someone is going to serendipitously see a small font newspaper advertisement or stumble it across the internet, that just doesn't seem like a reasonable conclusion, and certainly not consistent with what we've seen in other states. And then the final point, Representative Reeves touched on some of the tension that the industry has with notices that are not published correctly. So the legal organs across the state, as newspaper publication has decreased significantly over the last 20 years, many of them have moved to weekly print publications only. And the law requires that the advertisement be in a print publication, not just simply an online publication. Additionally, the code requires that the storage operator provide at least 15 days from the advertisement to the auction, and then that auction date is listed in the notice. But if the legal organ either fails to make that publication or fails to publish it correctly, the owner is going to be on the hook for at least a month or two of additional lost income from that storage unit, because they can't just simply go the next day and get it published in that legal organ. They need to wait at least a week, or more likely with publication deadlines, several weeks. So that pretty much is all of my testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we respectfully request your favorable consideration of House Bill 131. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. Questions by the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a question. Jane Sauls, Megan Armstrong, and Ann Ballard, can y'all all do it together, or do you want to do it separately? Sure. Come on up.
We'll squeeze into these 3 yellow chairs.
Okay. I just have 2 mics that are live right there.
We're friends. We're probably pretty loud, so. I'm sorry. Probably be able to hear us okay.
I'm Ann Ballard from Universal Storage Group. We manage over 80 properties across the nation and over 20 properties here in Georgia, and I've been in the self-storage management business for 31 years. This is Miss Jane, and on the Self-Storage Association Board of Directors for Georgia. Miss Jane Sauls.
Yes, I'm Jane Sauls. I'm the developer, owner, and operator of a facility in Carroll County. We also have Sauls Storage Group, where we are licensed in 7 states and do commercial real estate there as well. So,
Ann.
My name is Megan Armstrong. My husband and I own 2 facilities, one in Blue Ridge, the other in Calhoun, and I'm also on the board of the
Okay.
Self-Storage Association.
And Miss Ballard, I remember you were here last year.
Yes, I was. And thank the committee for allowing me to be back. I just brought some quick things, and then as operators, the other 2 ladies just have some quick things they would also like to
Sure.
read to you. I pulled our company data from 2023. They haven't given me the new data for 2024 yet, but in 2023, we wrote 4,489 auction letters, which start our legal process in the state of Georgia. That involved 1,490 storage units. Those people owed us a total of $1,003,221, and that we recovered at the auctions that we go through. It takes us about 90 days all told, from the day you start the process until the day you can have the auction. We recovered only $161,000, or 22%. And from that 22% we recover, we have high auction ad fees and the time it takes our managers to do the process, which I think Megan is going to talk to you a little bit more about. That involved, and in the end, 1,466 units, 228 views on websites that we advertise on, called storageauctions.com is the one we have. So we know that we had almost 500,000 people looking at our post to keep everybody aware. And we received over 16,789 bids on those almost 2,000 units. So we hope that the committee would agree with us that we are going above and beyond to try to make sure the consumer is aware, that everyone is aware. Our company, as do I think both of these ladies also, we do constant contact email blasts to all of our customers and contacts about the auction every month. We send an automated text and voicemail, even voicemail, the old voicemail, to them twice a month if they're past due. Then we go through using our post to certify, as the law requires us, that they actually got the email, and then we send letters when the email doesn't work. We make overlocks, we do phone calls, text, emails. We try to use technology a lot to make sure the customer is aware and work out any issues if there could be an issue with the customer. But at some point, we do have to go to sale. And the cost of all that lost income really impacts us a lot. Megan?
Okay,
Pull that mic back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
this one?
There you go.
All right. So one of the common things we do before it even comes close to auction is I will contact my tenants in any way I possibly can, and I always try phone, call, email, text. I do it Fridays, I do it the first of the month, I do it on the 15th, and I say, hey, if you're having a problem, let's work something out, and you can move out, and we don't have to go through, I don't have to sell your sentimental items. I've taken bids as low as $20 to let them move out. I give them as much time, I negotiate with them, I do everything I possibly can. But the biggest issue I personally have is we have the law states. We are to go to the legal to the newspaper of our county. I have a newspaper that refuses to work with me. I email them as per their request. I send it certified. I've tried having them notify me when it's opened, notify me when I get an answer, proof of delivery. They always say they don't have it. And now they told me now I have to call on Thursdays between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. I have 2 facilities and I work a full-time job. And 50% of the time they don't answer the phone, so I'm having to move my auction date back another 90 days because I cannot get the newspaper to cooperate with me. This has happened twice in the last 6 months.
Passes
All
over
right,
to Jane.
and
Jane?
if you would swing that over, there you go.
So our communication with our customers industry-wide is very similar because, as Ann pointed out, we do not make money, and Representative Reese referred to, we do not make money from the auctions whatsoever. So, like, very strategically, well, keep in mind, our relationship begins with them when they sign a written agreement saying that they will pay X amount of dollars for this space. And so this is something that they voluntarily committed to start with. On the first day of the month, they get a friendly reminder via email. On the 7th day of the month, they get another friendly reminder email. On the 14th day, another email. On the 21st, we're doing another email. There's text in there as well. All the way up to the last, around the 27th or 28th day, we're sending another text and email letting them know, hey, you're about to go to auction. And as Megan talked about, we want to actually negotiate with them, whatever that may look like. That's important that they, oftentimes, we was talking about it earlier, it may be someone's remains or that's been cremated in that auction. We don't want their belongings. They have no value to the general population, generally speaking. And just to kind of go along with Ann, from a smaller operator perspective, like at one of the properties that we manage last year, we had bad debt of $6,600 and 23% of that was collected. So you're looking at $1,500. At the other facility, we did do a little bit better. It's a little stronger demographic, and we did collect 37% of the bad debt at that facility. But what I really want to talk about and make sure we understand is we're not just talking about that lost revenue in the moment, right? Because what we want is that unit that we can get back so we can rent it to the next person in line. And so if you take just your average facility in the state of Georgia, around 40,000 square foot, and just say that on a rolling basis, they have 4 units that need to be, or in the auction process of some part of that. If that unit is valued at $125, that's $500 a month that they're looking at of lost revenue. So for the year, it's $6,000 in cash flow. And you think, well, that's a part of operating costs. But here's where the pain is for local operators, small business owners. This is where it gets real. It's when you actually have to apply a value from the overall facility to that number. So if I use a cap rate of 6.5, it is a loss in value of that facility of $92,308. Now, for a small owner, that's substantial. And not only is it substantial from a loss in value, why that's important, because you're like, well, if you're not going to sell, you didn't really lose. Well, however, if you have a mortgage on that property and your loan covenant states that you have to keep an annual debt service of a particular ratio, and with interest rates on what they have done over the past little bit, that is almost impossible. So that note could get called due, or you could just have to try to ante up. I don't know a lot of storage owners that have $100,000 sitting around that they could just write a check and ante up to make that note back in good standing. So, as we have said, we ask that the committee just be in agreement that we modernize this, help us get back to getting that revenue flow and cash flow established.
We thank you for your time.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe that's all the speakers we have. Any discussion by the committee about the bill? Yes, sir. You're on 16? Is that it?
I believe so.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to ask a question earlier, and unfortunately I wasn't able to on line 118, which is a commercially, and maybe I'll ask this for the author of the bill, maybe an example of what would be considered a commercially reasonable manner.
Online ads that generate 3 bidders or more. That would be, in most jurisdictions, that would be the case. There may be some towns where the legal organ generates 3 bidders, but experience has found, as you've heard from folks in the industry, that the online ads, that's what's generating the bidders.
And I understand that this is different. This is different from the notice to the tenant. Is that correct? The tenant, that they've already been qualified as.
That remains in place, so they're getting actual notice.
So, would you presume this could be done via a Facebook ad, for example, or a TikTok ad, or something of that nature? Is that kind of what we're considering here? I'm just trying to think of it from a an application standpoint.
From my understanding, I think that social media is one format that the industry is starting to get in, but online ads where people check these websites that have names like the online auction.com, storageauctions.com, and other similar things. Your search engine will probably pick it up if you're in the ballpark.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions? All right. What does the committee want to do with the bill? Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, bill passes, and that is all we have on the agenda. We are dismissed.